Ugh, hi, yeah. God. Hey, is this thing on? Hello? Alright. Is this stand? No, this. Oh god, I should really get a better position at the top, so I should really tell them what I'm doing. Ah, here, just let me read this. Um, it's no strange tide that I've reviewed some great and some abysmal mods in the recent months. I've talked trash about Willow, razed Shadowland to the ground, and put a cap in Akami's skull in the race to the bottom. And I thought I had seen it all at this point. Trust me, I feel like I've seen it all. But there was nothing that could baffle me. I've seen it all and... Okay. So, it's time we talk about a mod with relatively mixed opinions. I among them. Some find it pure genius, while others are ready to start a Twitter thread about why they hate it. I'm hoping that while I go in depth about my recent adventure, I can find where I stand. This isn't some Corgito ergo sum levels of questionable content, nor the virgin rage of Vanessa. It's more so that one kid from high school that you could never tell if he was a mastermind or a lunatic. It keeps you up at night, running in circles, answering questions with questions. Let me tell you about the tale of Alice in Wasteland. But first, how about some...
No one's wiser in Wonderland. Only he knows what you must do to save us. Now follow closely. The way is treacherous. We have so far to go and so little time to get there.
Alice in Wasteland, The Rabbit Hole, was developed by Fallout 2 AM and uploaded on December 25th, 2013, and last updated on April 1st, 2014. The mod consists of a main quest, 17 side quests, a bonus quest if the main quest is completed in a certain way. It contains cutscenes, custom music, custom weapons, and apparel, and no voiced NPCs. According to the mod author, it is not inspired by Lewis' character. Lewis' character? Not inspired by Lewis Carroll. Hey, Tops guys, can we really get the guys to stop drinking Nuka-Cola while they're, working on my script? Thank you. It's dialogue heavy with few fights in between, but the enemies themselves are beefy. They do take references from the book as well as direct sentences, but overall the theme is something Fallout 2 AM got from the book and the movies that inspired the mod. Everything that's shown, told, or what we see changes depending on how you interpret them. Also of note, skill checks are all hidden, mainly speech, so you'll never know if this was your charisma or speech that was low. Male and female characters have different experiences. What's important is that there is no quest markers. You're reliant on the info that they give you in order to figure it out. This one will prove to be the biggest issue later, but there is a guide to help you. But it lacks a certain detail that prevents you from ever completing the quest, unless you murder everyone, you son of Cain. Side note, I'm editing this now. There it is in the guide. I'm just blind, okay? Like, I'm just blind. That's all I can say. There's no biblical allusion I can make. Sorry. If you miss this one, then there's no chance in hell you're finding Terra's shop. To say this mod is all fun isn't exact. It has highs and lows. There's an overall message that even reading the comments on the page itself doesn't help me decipher what the mod is saying, even. Maybe it's saying nothing at all. The quest picks up once you get past Fury's quest, but before that it drags. This mod and my inability to find Terra's shop naturally ruined my early enjoyment of the mod. I only got a rush of enjoyment towards the end, but once the dust settled, I couldn't care. I didn't get the craze that was behind it. I still don't. Maybe by recounting the adventure I will. So,
I've heard self-reliance is a virtue. Now, you've heard it.
Following the trail of a white rabbit leads us to Freeside train station, where upon further investigation we find a door and behind it is a woman scared out of her mind. She's afraid of something coming after her. Oh, pardon me, I tried forgetting this a lot, but a Babylonian told us about the woman in need, like towards this front in Freeside, like out of Dickon Elf's. She threw me through a loop in a stroke talking to her, and it seemed to have affected my memory. Hey, Tops, what I tell you guys? Like, stop eating your chicken nuggets when you're writing my scripts, okay? Thank you. The woman tells us to find the white rabbit who can help her out. So we start searching, and yeah, I didn't snort any of Lot's salt, so let's just move on. Wandering around Freeside, we eventually find him, and he says we have to pay him money or do something for his hat. Because we need his hat to get into the place that's going to help her. Look, it makes sense later, I think. It doesn't help that he also talks in riddles. Trust me, that is a staple of this mod. I go and clean his house and get the hat. Now going to a place called the dorm house. The door guard sees our hat and lets us in. Are you guys just sniffing Lot's salt? Like, come on. Oh yeah, I'm still going. Entering the dorm house, Bill the wizard stops us and asks what we're doing here. Picking the option that doesn't get us kicked out, we're free to explore. Now it's up to us exploring we're doing something. To find matter to help the woman? He's like the boss of the place, I think. Cue me wandering around until Soaring leave me. I promised lots of action, caps, and food. And about 3 of those did not show, because I didn't find any action, I didn't find any food, and I didn't get any caps. But there is a highlight in the story. I'm getting there, random citizen that won't sit down. So Hope had to call in some friends to replace them. Talking to all the residents, we learn that Frenchman Cerise has the hots for Fury the Babylonian, and Fury lost her heart, but it's actually a doll. Matter Scarred T lost his cap and will let us in if we find it. The outside guard, Mouse, whose head is gigantic. Pardon my language. Shockingly gigantic, is hungry. There is another lady behind a door, and there's a gibberish-talking duke with a cook of a wife and a daughter named Hay. No, not that Hay ghost. Her name is H-E-Y. And it's the only word she says. Now you might be wondering, how did I, the great Sergeant Lucky that I am, alongside Hope, Twig, Scar, and Ben, progress the main quest? Well, in order to find T's cap, like a thing that you would think is like relatively simple. Oh, it's gotta be around the dorm house. I did 1. Did Tara Big Brown Brahman's quest. 2. Gave Fury her heart and hooked her up with the gross French baguette. 3. Tricked the locked door lady with food and learned she's hiding from raiders. I went and killed the raiders, and missed this important secret passage. Oh well. Oh, fuck me. 5. Go inside, eat the strange cake that I got from this dude I forgot to mention, get the cap, and disregard a gross abomination that won't be mentioned. 6. And finally return the cap. Several hops, skips, and a parting the Red Sea later, and one missing companion, we aren't talking about it, I still haven't found him. I'm finally face to face with Matter. How does he help us after all these side quests? The door was always open. Going back, it was always open. The door was just open. Apparently I didn't try the fucking door. Alice isn't here. Was she ever here? Going back to Matter, he tells us that Black Dog... he's White Rabbit. The Black Dog was hiding as White Rabbit, and it makes sense, trust me. Has gone into Alice's mind, and that we have to enter her dream to... Just like reading this dialogue, I just had a stroke. We have to enter her dream through a pill to save her. How? I don't know, but I think we take it anyways, and we find ourselves in a dream. Catherine, the former Babylonian, approaches us and wishes us luck before vanishing. I take the left hall and go through the door to find myself in a nightmare. 3 to be exact, of going around, killing enemies, picking up a key, finding the door, progressing. Then we stand before Black Dog himself and have an attempted talk down when either my charisma or my speech failed somehow, and had to fight him to a quick end. Afterwards, I take another pill to awaken and discover the dorm house in a state of ruin. On Matter's bed is Alice, dead, and searching around, we don't find anyone. No one but Hay remains. Yet she doesn't seem to remember us. She says her name is Alice and is an orphan. Checking out the rest of the place, we just find destruction, as if no one had ever lived here since the war. Okay. Cool. And that's it. Save for side content like shops and other areas of little to no importance to the main plot, other than finding a home for the little girl, that's it. Confused? Do you understand the point of all this? Why we did any of this? If you're saying that, lucky you didn't know any dialogue at all, then congrats, because this mod likes to suck itself off at its dialogue, because there's so much of it, and it's styled so weirdly, that to remember it, I'd have to write it down and read it out like it was a book. Like, he was performing some Gamora shit. Look, I've studied English literature and the way of the pen, and this is certainly something that works better written out as a note or in a book than in a game. But I'll save that for later. Now, it's the breakdown of the...
True words and logic rarely defeat evil intent. She is still strong, and so many have been harmed. They want revenge, which we call justice. She made this world, and she must pay. You must lead our forces against her.
There's plenty of notables in the quest to save the woman behind the non-locked door, but we never speak to her, so she's off the list. There's Black Dog, the antagonist, who's the embodiment of chaotic evil. Fury, who pretends to be innocent, but is a Babylonian of the dorm house. Cerise, the French pervert. Bill, the wizard, the repairman of the place, and a bipolar a-hole. T is Matter's bodyguard and has no nonsense. Literally. Except for his head. That's pretty cool. Finding his head is the only way to progress through the main story. Come to think of it, if I replayed the mod, I could beat it within an hour of starting. Then there's Matter the Big Boss, who I didn't speak to outside the main quest. I don't think there was any dialogue at all. Mouse is the main outside guard, but other than the side quest, he's unimportant. You just are trying to find food to make him not hungry. Oh, and the gibberish-spouting Duke, his wife, and Hay. There is a prisoner Doge girl. There's the prisoner Doge girl in the basement. That kind of doesn't really lead anywhere. Oh well. I think that's everyone. Unlike my Race to the Bottom review, reading the chapter's worth of riddles each character speaks to learn about them is far from my to-dos when discussing them, as it reveals little to nothing about them, because it's just so much reading. Like, I'm pretty sure it's not that, I don't think it's that hard to get a voice actor. My heart and lungs nearly collapsed chasing after the dialogue and its meanings. For a mod called Alice in Wasteland, you have very little interaction with her at all, save for the start. Each character talks in riddles, never answering clearly and always turning it around on you. Catherine, Matter, Black Dog, you name it, and they talk cryptically. Sometimes, I'd have a stroke reading it, and apparently there is madness to the words and an overall message. Again, I am a studier of literature, old and new, and I can decipher Dante's Inferno better than this. I've danced around this section long enough, so it's time for my...
Bad timing. Pity. Reliable help is so hard to find these days. Come in, my dear. You're just in time for tea.
Alice in Wasteland holds itself up as being built upon the ideas of some movies, as well as Lewis Carroll's story. Which is strange as one has no theme or message whatsoever, and the other is vague. Searching the comments section, I could not find anyone talking about the complex theme the mod author parades in his replies and description, other than the fact they're like, oh my god, it's so good, I finally get it, or you have to read through all this dialogue that I wrote. I spent a long time coding that. I've rewatched and reread the dialogue numerous times, and I still can't put a pin on the what of the mod. I've prayed, made pilgrimages, and discovered that the mod is a Lover's Lab, on Lover's Lab of all places. Have I mentioned secrets galore? No. Have I unearthed them? No. Have I discovered that I like this mod? No. It doesn't help that if I didn't have the guide, I would have never discovered that I missed the radio, which is the only hint in the game as to where to get the next step in order to progress with Fury's quest. That opens the others. But once I got past the Fury roadblock, everything went as smooth as butter. The mod praises itself and notes how heavy the dialogue is, but it honestly is a burden with how much there is. If it was slower and I could actually read it, then maybe I'd have a better opinion of them. Race to the Bottom had a long dialogue, but it was all voice acted, so I understood it better because I wasn't having a stroke trying to read it and catch up with it. Not having my skill checks present is kind of annoying as I never know what I'm lacking to require them. That's a personal nitpick, but my final battle was supposed to be a talk down that I somehow failed. I have very little nice things to say other than this mod had its unique aesthetic, that it stuck to it until the very end, and I think that's also a detriment. I honestly don't want to talk about this mod anymore, so I think it's time for my...
You've gotten a lot farther than you should have, but then you haven't met Frank Horrigan either. Your ride's over, Muty. Time to die.
My personal enjoyment came very late for Alice in Wasteland. I have little to no motivation to even write about this mediocre mod. Maybe it's just a personal preference as to the design choices, but recording Fallout became an ungodly chore. I'll have to scrape it off my save file to disinfect my playthrough. I need to find the fun again in New Vegas. Maybe it's time to take a vacation back to New Canaan. I honestly think that's gonna help me relax, rediscover myself. Alice in Wasteland earns... Sunset Sarsaparilla. The mediocre mod cannot earn higher than this. It only goes lower, especially with the Lover's Lab affiliation. The dialogue, just the way I'm having to reread a sentence, but then I miss the sentence, and then I miss more of it, because I'm trying to have a stroke catching up to it, and trying to figure out what are they meaning. Also, stop turning the dialogue back around on me. It burns the mod more. Like, this is off script, but it just, I see what they're going for, and this is the coding. The coding is great. The coding, I think the coding, the aesthetic, and obviously the custom content. That all stuff. That's what brings it up to the three out of 5. It's I can't bring it any higher because mainly just dialogue is a detriment, and then more the fact that I don't understand why I did it. I just feel like it just wasted. I feel like I wasted my time with it. And then, and maybe it could get lower if more I nitpick about it and go searching through it. But obviously, there's a lot of there's stuff here. There's side content that you can explore. But there's options. Obviously, yeah. There's options to solve things differently. But it's kind of one of those things of the dialogue doesn't make it worth it because let me find an example. Yeah, let me find an example. Oh, hang on. All right, I found it. This is when we're talking to Matter for the first time. You had a lot of trouble, maybe fights. Maybe you had to carry out some duties to help some people. Maybe you wandered for a long time. Oh God, this dialogue is... Oh, all this because of a closed door. How digressing. I'm almost sure you know what a fat man is, and I'm sure you could handle one of those in case of needs. You still are blocked by a closed door. Don't you find this peculiar? I don't... And then your response is literally how I feel. I don't get what you mean. What are you talking about? The more I think about this mod, the more I'm gonna hurt myself. Not physically. Well, it's getting physical pains and headaches. But it's just one of those things of... I'm asking myself why, and the more I think about it, the more it hurts to think about, what is the point of this? Did I help this person because I wanted to help someone? But even then, that doesn't really make sense because I just wandered in there, and it's like, oh, you saw this random door, and we're like, I'm gonna help somebody. You know what? Here's a new thing. I'm gonna make this thing. It gets the lucky stamp of disapproval. I cannot recommend this. Only if you want to. Shadowland gets a stamp of disapproval. It gets 3 of them. But this one, it just gets the stamp of disapproval and try it at your own risk. It's... Yeah, I gotta get off the stage. I gotta go check in with Chet Masterson? Yeah, he's taking me back home. Where do I get my caps?
As a hand-picked resident of Vault 76, it is your duty to carefully review your Vault-Tec-provided films yearly to fully prepare for the day when you will emerge.